Chapter 1, Section 5, Microorganisms and the Biosphere. Now we need to keep in mind, Earth is about 4.6-ish billion years old. Not as old as the universe, but we've been around for a while, or at least our planet has. First cells, 3.5, 3.8, 4.3-ish billion years ago. How do we know this? Well, there's fossil record. And I know, you're sitting there thinking there can't be fossils to be fossils. There has to be some sort of a multicellular thing, or at least some, some skeleton or some sort of an exoskeleton like the diatom, something. Well, you get enough of these cells floating around in those primordial oceans, settling out over millions and millions of years, they start to form a sediment. That sediment dried out, and you got a specific type of rock. And no, I can't remember what that rock is because, well, it's not my thing. I just know that there's a special kind of rock which they think was from those original single-cell organisms. Up until about almost just over 2.5 billion years ago, our atmosphere was nothing like we would recognize. Our atmosphere was hellish. Methane, carbon dioxide, ammonia, all sorts of things that would basically scorch your lungs. Because of this, only anaerobic organisms, these single-cell things, had to run on anaerobic metabolism. Remember, anaerobic means that it does not use oxygen in any shape or form. We started to see the first phototrophs about 3.6-ish billion years ago. They started to show up. Not a lot going on there. But it wasn't until we found about 2.6-ish billion years ago the cyanobacteria. The cyanobacteria really started to pump out the oxygen. We started to see this really measurable uptick in oxygen. Again, how do we know? Rocks. We look at rocks. We look at the iron content in rocks that were sediments laid down 3.5 billion years ago. And we start to see rust. To have rust, the iron must have come into contact with oxygen. So you start to see that reaction occurring. We, plants and animals, are late to the party. A little over 500 million years ago, we show up. So when you look at what has occurred, look at it as a clock face. Eukaryotes, we come about 2 billion-ish years ago. Those early eukaryotes would have been single-cell things, protists, things like that. The oxygen here is finally present, which is why we start to see eukaryotes. We start to see them, the cyanobacteria, just blossom. And yeah, it's the cyanobacteria in all our oceans and our lakes and streams that actually gave us our oxygen-rich environment. You look right here. Boom. Animals, vascular plants, mammals, and just a few seconds left there on this clock face. We show up. I always sit there and say, North Pole, the South Pole, and every place in between, you're going to find life. It's going to be weird where you find the life, what life you're going to find. They're showing here these marshy areas. You look up closer and closer, and what you begin to see are different single-cell organisms. Prokaryotes, eukaryotes. So the last common ancestor that we all three evolved from would have been that proto-cell. Some form of a genome, DNA, current thought, maybe an RNA strand, some proteins acting as an enzyme, maybe some ribozyme instead of proteins. It's a new thought that's coming about. And all of that enclosed in a lipid bubble. Check all the boxes there for life. You have a lipid membrane. Inside, outside, outside in things. Keep things in, keep things out. You have a genome with instructions on how to make the protein / ribozymes that make and repair you. And then as long as you can make or repair yourself to the point that you can make a copy, ta-da, life as we know it. This kind of looked a little weird. I do believe that's supposed to say 2 times 10 to the 30th. My version of PowerPoint here has screwed some stuff up. 2 times 10 to the 30th microbial cells on planet Earth. Okay, just so we're 2 with 30 zeros. Damn. That's a lot. That's more than plants, that's more than fungi, that's more than animals, way more than us. It's a significant portion of Earth's biomass is caught up right there. And as I've said, North Pole, South Pole, every place in between, glaciers, hot spring, high salt, low salt, high acidity, low acidity, high pressure, probably be at the bottom of the oceans, low pressure, top of mountains, the Himalayas, things like that. Microbes are everywhere. We eukaryotes, maybe not. Microbes, the prokaryotes, definitely are. Now, I'm not sitting there saying that the majority of all the carbon on this planet is captured as microbes. No, turns out plants got them there. But it's interesting, the nitrogen. The nitrogen found as part of the amino acids and proteins, part of the nitrogenous bases in RNA, DNA, and things like that. The microbes, prokaryotes, archaea, protists, yeah, they've got us beat. Here's from the textbook, table 1.2. Gives you an example of extremophiles. Hypothermophile, psychrophile. Look at the hypothermophiles. Methanoporus candelari. Optimally, 106 degrees Celsius. That's over boiling. It can handle up to 122. Okay, this is going to be down, remember those thermal vents. We got those superheated gases. Psychrophiles, low temperature. Psychomonas, I'm not even going to try that one. Ingramly. It's going to be, it likes sea ice. -12 degrees Celsius to 10 degrees Celsius. it would last a few minutes. These guys, that's the norm. High acidity, low acidity, high pressure, high salt,